It's time for Overtime.
Stop what you're doing and listen.
In the world of sports, it's all about the playmakers in today's headlines, from locals to the pros, with interviews from local standouts and sports all-stars across the country that will have you talking.
Still going. Good night. Touchdown.
Hear from coaches to players, sports analysts, and broadcasters who are a part of the action every day. Overtime, now on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
It's hour number 2 on a Wednesday, officially rolling downhill into the weekend. Welcome back to Overtime. Bert Rameen with you. Beautiful day in the 605. It's a chilly one, but beautiful nonetheless as we round it out in this December 11th edition of the show. Coming up, the latest from the NFL, the good, the bad, the ugly, and our weekly conversation with South Dakota State Jackrabbit head football coach Jimmy Rogers. The Jackrabbits set to match up for the second time this year with the Incarnate Word Cardinals. That was a close game into the third quarter, halfway through the third quarter in Brookings back in early September for the home opener. Very well could be the home closer. Not saying they're going to lose, but very well could be the final home game win or loss for the Jackrabbits, depending upon how the remainder of that bracket shakes out. So get up, get out, and check out the opportunity. Go check out the Jackrabbits, gojacks.com for your ticketing information. Now diving into the scorecard coming up tomorrow night, the return of the National Football League, Thursday Night Football, Rams and the Niners. Not an elimination game, but certainly feels like one in the playoff picture. The Rams on the road and a road dog in the game. Spread currently about 2.5 in favor of San Francisco, according to ESPN Bet. Here's Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford on preparing to face that Niner defense.
I'm just doing everything I can to try to wrap my head around our plan, how we want to attack and go out there and play as an offense, so I can go, lead those guys in a tough environment, against a really good football team. So, obviously, when you're playing meaningful football in December, it's a great thing, and week to week, we just know they mean a lot. Go out there and do everything you can, try to win the game.
That's quarterback Matthew Stafford coming up on Sunday. Chiefs at Browns, noon. Colts at Broncos, Bills at Lions, Steelers and Eagles. All three of those important games in the same exact window. Not 3:05, but 3:25 coming up on Sunday afternoon. No more bye weeks for the NFL. Going to be a loaded slate to tip it off on week 15 over the weekend. Into that matchup, though, Steelers and the Eagles. Have we seen the best of the Eagles, and are they going to slide down the stretch again like they did last year? Here's ESPN's Chris Canty.
Like all these other teams that we're talking about competing for championships, they're going to be getting better. Nobody is stagnant. If you win a Super Bowl, that's because your team is really, really talented, and you continue to ascend while other teams plateaued. The question is, have we seen the best version of the Philadelphia Eagles this season? And I don't think it's off the board that might be the case, especially with the drama that's coming out right now. And here's the thing. We're not the ones that are airing the dirty laundry. It's the players in the locker room that are doing that.
Yeah.
Brandon Graham, as respected of a leader and a team captain as there is in the NFL, came out and said, we can't let the personal get in the way of business. When they asked A.J. Brown what's going wrong with the team, he said, we got to work on passing. What do you got to do to improve? We got to work on passing. Pointing the finger at Jalen Hurts. Like that's not what you do if that's your guy and you got his back.
After a win.
But clearly that's not the case. Don't frame this up like we're the ones that are trying to create a problem. We're not creating a problem. We're just talking about the issues that they already told us they had.
That's Chris Canty talking about the Eagles. If anybody's responsible for their own demise, it's going to be Philadelphia this year based on the internal strife they've manufactured. They've won 9 straight games. They keep winning. Doesn't really matter. Last time I checked, how you win the big games, how you win the Super Bowl, and we're still finding ways to complain about it internally. We being the Philadelphia Eagles, not me, but the Eagles right now, a mess despite the fact they keep on winning, one of the best records in football and the second longest current NFL win streak. A team that would love to be on some sort of a win streak is the Chicago Bears. They'll duke it out with the Vikings on the road for Monday Night Football. Minnesota is a 7-point favorite in that game Monday night, 7 o'clock on ABC and ESPN+. Michelle Smallman says Chicago is the single biggest disappointment in the NFL this year.
I don't think there's any team that is more disappointing in the NFL currently than the Chicago Bears. Heading into this season, we talked ad nauseum about what a great job the Chicago Bears did. They lied in wait and passed on C.J. Stroud, and they passed on Jaden Daniels, and they got their guy in Caleb Williams, and they put all of this talent around him. We even said he might be walking into the single greatest situation a rookie quarterback, a number 1 overall pick, has ever walked into from a talent perspective. And they still couldn't get out of their own way. And I would say at the end of all of this with the Chicago Bears, we're going to view this season as a failure for them.
Absolutely. It is a failure for Chicago. Anytime you fire your head coach, despite the fact that I thought his seat was pretty hot coming in, it's a failure of a season. No playoffs, no wins to really recognize within the last month plus for the Chicago Bears. But there's a couple other teams that come to mind as more disappointing based upon expectations. The Cowboys are more disappointing than the Chicago Bears. A lot of folks, despite the fact that they didn't address running back, a lot of people said Dallas will be back in the playoffs. They're not going anywhere, but they'll get to double-digit wins. Dallas right now has 5 wins and are not going to the playoffs this year. The New York Jets are immensely disappointing. Rodgers has been healthy. And the last time I checked, everyone said if Rodgers can stay healthy, if he's just a dude, everyone, including me, they're going to the playoffs. Maybe they're a deep playoff run. Maybe they're a Super Bowl contender. I thought so. I thought Rodgers was going to bring back some of that hyper-efficient football, big in the big moments football, and the Jets defense would be good. Just about everything I just said was not the case this year for Rodgers and the New York Jets, and that defense and the coach being fired, the GM being fired, and all of the drama and the fact that they kept reaching out, grabbing more logs in the form of Devontae Adams and others and throwing them into the fire and saying, I hope this sticks. I hope this keeps us warm. Jets have not been good. Cowboys have not been good. And the other team that comes to mind, a lot of this has to do with injuries, but we did not establish criteria here. The Niners are immensely disappointing this year. Their story is not yet done. It's not fully written, but the final couple of chapters better be pretty darn good for San Francisco if they want to get back to the dance in the form of the NFL postseason. College football coming up on Saturday. Game of the year always is Army and Navy from Landover, Maryland. That is a 2:00 start time on CBS. The FCS playoffs return on Friday night. Idaho visiting Montana State. That is the 1-8 matchup in the postseason. The Bobcats home in Bozeman, 8:00 on ESPN. Saturday, we got an 11:00 start up in Brookings. Jackrabbits home to Incarnate Word. 2:00 start down in Vermilion as USD plays host to UC Davis in the 4-5 seed matchup, and North Dakota State battling the Mercer Bears. That is a 2:30 start time on ABC. So around 5:00, 6:00 coming up on Saturday, we will have the Final Four for the FCS college football playoffs established. Pete Thamel talking about Bill Belichick and his flirtation with the UNC Tar Heel program. Interesting stuff here as Bill Belichick starting to establish himself down in Chapel Hill despite no reports of taking the job just yet.
Sources have told me that there's been outreach to staff. Sources have told me Bill Belichick is exploring different transfer portal players. There are signs of just how significant Bill Belichick's interest is in this North Carolina job. But what we don't have yet is a formalized deal. We don't have anything signed. We don't have an agreement for Bill Belichick to become North Carolina's coach. He would be entering college football in an era where we're shifting from NIL to revenue share. There are a lot of things to learn, a lot of things to run out. The reporting and organizational structure, I've been told, is extremely important to Bill Belichick. How would it be set up? What would it be like? Who would he report to? All of those things combined with the finances of getting North Carolina competitive again are important. Remember, North Carolina has not won an ACC football title since 1980.
Been a very long time since North Carolina was consistently good. They've had some 8-win, 9-win, couple double-digit win seasons over the last 30, 40 years, but they have not been a really realistically relevant football program for a more than 2-3 year stretch in a very long time. Maybe Bill Belichick the answer. That's the latest there from Pete Thamel of ESPN. NBA basketball last night, NBA Cup quarterfinal action. Orlando lost to Milwaukee 114-109. Giannis fired up to be back in Vegas for the semis.
I'm very happy that we are able to go to Vegas. We have unfinished business. We are going to have fun. We're going to play good basketball. We are going to compete. We are going to make it tough as much as possible for whoever we play. and we're going to try to win games.
Bucks very sluggish start to the season. They've rebounded well. They're 13-11 heading for the semifinals. Giannis 37 points last night. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 39 points for the Oklahoma City Thunder. His team also moving on with a 118-104 win against Dallas.
For me personally, like, that's where you see who's really who and who you really are. Is when you play the top of the top. And for me, it's just, that's where I want to be at the end of the day. I want to come out the West and I want to win an NBA championship. And they did it, so we're going to have to go through them. So it's a good measure. It's good to see where we are.
That's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Thunder are 19-5, among the best records in all of the NBA. Tonight, the other pair of quarterfinal matchups, Hawks and the Knicks from MSG, 6 o'clock on ESPN. Warriors and Rockets from Houston, 8:30 on TNT. Women's basketball, USD got a great performance from Grace Larkins yesterday. Almost a triple-double, 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 9 assists. But the team lost in Cedar Falls to the Panthers 78-59. USD women fall down to 4-7 on the season. Loaded slate tonight in area women's basketball. SDSU home to Dakota Wesleyan at 7 o'clock. Nebraska home to Tarleton State, same time. Minnesota also home, 7 o'clock start against Jackson State. And a big battle in the Hawkeye State. Iowa State visiting Iowa City and the Hawkeyes. That gets going at 8 o'clock on Fox Sports 1 in a ranked battle. Iowa State 18th, Iowa 21st. Going to be a big game tonight in Iowa City. Men's basketball last night, very entertaining game. USD fends off a feisty Wyoming team and stays perfect at home. 25 points from Chase Forte to lead the Yotes to an 8-4 record on the season. 82-81, slimmest of margin victory over the Wyoming Cowboys. Tonight in men's basketball, rival South Dakota State in action out in Reno against the Nevada Wolfpack. That is a 9 o'clock jump time. NHL hockey, Colorado Avalanche got a huge game from Mikko Rantanen, 3 goals and 2 assists, and they win 6-2 in Pittsburgh. Avs are 17-13-0. Winnipeg over Boston 8-1. Minnesota Wild win in a shootout. Matt Boldy playing hero last night with a 5-4 win on the road over Utah. The Wild are 19-5-4. Fantastic start to the year. And St. Louis notched a win last night as well in Vancouver in overtime. 4-3 the final. Tonight just 2 games across the league. Rangers at Sabres, 6 o'clock. Ducks at Senators, a 6:30 start time. Jeff Passan talking about Juan Soto. Yes, it's a big get for the New York Mets, but a lot of teams wiping their brow and saying, maybe we're better off for not paying that much for that guy right now. Here's Jeff Passan.
It's kind of amazing the Yankees lost out on Juan Soto and might be better off. And it's one of those situations where the baseball people, they look at this and they weren't rooting for Soto not to sign with them, but it didn't kill them all that much. And here's the thing. This is not a good baseball deal. In the context of everything else in the sport, it is an exceptional overpay. But it also shows you that when a guy is 26 years old and the caliber of Juan Soto and he hits free agency, it's a bonanza. Age matters more than just about anything. Talent matters, don't get me wrong, but when you can combine talent and age, the world is your oyster.
Major League Baseball news there from Jeff Passan, Juan Soto. A lot of teams might be saying, you know what, I'm glad we were in the sweepstakes. We entertained the conversation, but happy now that we have this $785, maybe $800 million off of our books for the next 15 years. Mets going all in, Yankees and other teams, a little bit of a sigh of relief, maybe, that they did not end up landing his services. It took all 40 minutes last night, but the South Dakota men's basketball team remained perfect at home this year, notching an 82-81 win over Wyoming inside the Sanford Coyote Sports Center. After getting into foul trouble in the first half, Chase Forte made up for missed time in the second half, posting 17 points on 6 of 11 shooting with 5 rebounds and 3 assists for the game. Forte had a new season-high 25 points to go with 5 assists, 5 rebounds, and a steal. Caleb Stewart had 17. Dre Bullock had 14 points off the bench. Complete total team effort for USD. They are 8-4. Big win over Wyoming, 82-81. Next up, Saturday, home to Western Illinois. That is an 11 o'clock start time from inside the Sanford Coyote Sports Center. Final road trip of the non-conference slate of the season ended for USD women's basketball. They lost to Northern Iowa 78-59 last night on the road in Cedar Falls. Grace Larkins an assist shy of a triple-double. Other players, Alexi Hempy, the third guy out in double figures with 10. Adara Groman also had 10 points last night. Not good enough as USD falls 78-59. The Yotes will get some much-needed rest after 3 games, 2 on the road. And next up, they'll host Wyoming on Sunday at 1 o'clock. 3 members of the South Dakota State volleyball team earned recognition from the American Volleyball Coaches Association on Tuesday, including a Northwest Region Coach of the Year honor handed out to SDSU Jackrabbit head coach Dan Georgalis. In addition to Sydney Shetton and Sylvie Zagunts became the first Jackrabbits to be named an ABCA All-Region team in the SDSU's D1 era. Georgalis, in his 5th season at SDSU, guided the Jackrabbits to a 27-3 overall record. They fell just short of a Summit League tournament title, losing to USD, but still got a bid to the NCAA tournament, falling to the Miami Hurricanes in game number 1. Nebraska has their new defensive coordinator, and they promoted from within their current staff. John Butler has gotten the job, reshaping the side of the football. Butler serves as Nebraska's secondary coach and defensive pass game coordinator and was already named the team's interim DC. He will be the full-time defensive coordinator for Matt Rule on staff down in Lincoln moving forward. South Dakota State hits the road for 2 consecutive non-conference matchups this week. The Jackrabbit men head to Reno tonight to face off with the Wolfpack of the University of Nevada. That's a 9 o'clock start time at Lawler Event Center. The Jackrabbits then head up to Boulder, Colorado to take on the Buffaloes. That is an 8 o'clock central start on Friday inside the CU Event Center. The Jacks are coming off a 1-1 stretch as part of the Big Sky Summit Conference or Summit League Conference Challenge. SDSU narrowly fell to Montana 71-67 on Wednesday. Jacks responded on Saturday with a decisive win against Eastern Washington 74-53. State features a 10-man rotation that average at least 10 minutes and score more than 4 points per game apiece. Oscar Clough, as we heard early this year and often this year, will be the guy. Paces SDSU in scoring and rebounding, leading the nation in total double-doubles on the season so far with 8. SDSU all-time against Nevada 2-3, 2-2 record against the Wolfpack at the D1 level. Other news to get to as we continue with your Reliabank headlines of the day. Preseason NSIC Athlete of the Year and reigning NSIC Athlete of the Year, Bryn Greenwald, is the NSIC Swimmer of the Week for the second time in as many competitions. The Augustana swimmer and the junior from Foley, Minnesota, individually hit an NCAA A-cut and 2 B-cut times at the Rochester Invite, won the 50 freestyle in 22.11 seconds, an A-cut, and the 4th fastest time in D2 history. Congratulations, early NSIC Athlete of the Year honor for Bryn Greenwald. The University of Sioux Falls baseball program excited to welcome 5 talented student athletes to the Cougar family for next season. These recruits bring a blend of skill, athleticism, and dedication that will bolster the program's bright future, according to USFCougars.com. They ink a deal with 3 Minnesota natives, 1 Nebraska native, and 1 South Dakota native. Stevens High School out in Rapid City, Jet Peterson, joining the program, adds a dynamic skill set to the Cougar outfield. Known for his leadership, Jet served as a varsity captain and boasts a .495 on base percentage, .286 batting average, and a .915 fielding percentage. Learn more about the young men joining the USF Cougar baseball program at USFCougars.com. And lastly, I can't co-sign on this enough from Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin going off and saying the college football's current setup is a, quote, dumb system. And he wasn't referring to the playoff selection process for a change. He's been very vocal about being left out as far as his program goes. Kiffin, who has been outspoken about his team and others from the powerhouse Southeastern Conference getting left out of the college football playoff, ripped the college calendar this time, which forces many coaches to juggle a transfer window while preparing for bowl games. It came on the heels of several coaches having to squeeze National Signing Day into a week of preparation for conference championship games. We just try to make the best of situations, Kiffin said during a video conference call for coaches headed to the Gator Bowl. It really is a dumb system. Just think of the NFL. Think if they were getting ready for the AFC, NFC playoffs, the postseason, and players are in free agency already. It's a poor system, but we try to manage it the best we can through it, and hopefully someday it'll get fixed. This makes too much sense to not fix. Frankly, I don't know how it hasn't gotten addressed yet. The fact that players are entering the transfer portal already. Free agency is wide open. Transfer destinations are being known. All the courtship is going on. It's the wild, wild west. Players that had no intention of transferring are getting hit up by certified and uncertified agents about, hey, your future, son, looks pretty bright. I got a couple offers for you here, there, and everywhere. Why don't you hop into the portal and let's do some business? It is a really weird, frankly, and flawed system right now in college football. A little bit of a sour taste in your mouth, despite the fact that the on-field performances this year have been awesome. The expansion from 4 to 12 in the playoff field has been awesome. There are some flaws there, but it has been a welcome sight, welcome addition to the sport. I hope that they get the seeding right moving forward, tinker with it a little bit, and maybe you go to 16, and that is it. But regardless, this calendar thing brings up an interesting point, because Kenny Dillingham, the coach at Arizona State, recently, paraphrasing, of course, talking about the guys that are entering the portal and saying, I'm going to hop out and I'm going to wait until the end of the season to hop into the portal. I want to be with the team. Dillingham saying, you know what, just go ahead and enter the portal. You can be with us. If you're planning on leaving, do so. The fact that a coach has to make that consideration, that concession, and waste that time mid-season to have the conversation with a player that might be toying around with the idea of leaving, might be as far as convinced to get into the portal, or somebody that is plain and simply, I'm done, I want out of here. Whatever it might be, the scenario, this needs to be post-season. I don't understand why it's so darn difficult for all these teams that have nothing to play for, teams that are not bowl eligible, or maybe teams that are bowl eligible, not CFP eligible. Who really cares down the stretch about playing in your random bowl game? When you're not playing for a CFP, you want to secure your future, hop in the portal, find your home. I don't get the timing of this, though. This is a bad look for college football, needs to be changed imminently moving forward. And Lane Kiffin hits the nail right on the head. A dumb system. Co-sign that 100%. Those are your Reliabank headlines of the day, as always brought to you by the fine folks at Reliabank here in the 605. If you can't check them out in person, visit them online at Reliabank.com. We take the break. We're coming back talking NFL news, the latest standings, and of course, the playoff picture. And if Sam Darnold is not going to be the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings next year, what are a few realistic landing spots? I've got one in mind that is too good to be true, and Vikings fans are probably going to say, please no. That is too good of a landing spot for Sam Darnold. I do not want him to beat us. We'll discuss that and more coming up next on Overtime. Still to come, South Dakota State head football coach Jimmy Rogers on a Wednesday.
Get ESPN with the free app and online. Grab your phone or call us up on your smart device. Now let's get you back to Overtime with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO.
Moving right along, hour number 2 on a Wednesday. Thanks for tuning us in, as always, right here on your Sioux Falls sports leader. It's ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO. You ever miss any of the show? Podcast links are easy to find. ESPNSiouxFalls.com or on the free ESPN Sioux Falls app. Let's talk NFL football. First things first here. Let's look at the NFL standings and playoff picture. In the AFC, it feels like we've got our 7 teams. There could be a team in, team out, maybe one, at most 2. We'll discuss that in a moment, but here are your 7 seeds in order right now. Kansas City, 12-1, likely to be the top seed. Buffalo 2, Pittsburgh 3, Houston 4. Then you got Baltimore at 5, the Chargers at 6, and the Broncos at 7. For you Bronco fans out there, it's a 2-game lead right now over the Indianapolis Colts and the Miami Dolphins, although the Broncos meet the Colts this weekend at home in Denver, 3:25 on CBS. That is a massive game for Denver, and frankly, all of them the rest of the way for the Broncos are going to be pretty darn big. Here's their remaining schedule. Home to Indy, at the Chargers, playoff team, at the Bengals, playoff caliber offense, defense a different story, and then home to the Chiefs. We'll see if the Kansas City Chiefs have anything to play for in that game. So the Broncos certainly need to win this weekend to firm up their playoff chances. That's your top 7. Teams on the outside looking in: Indy, Miami, Cincinnati. Everyone else in the AFC, 3 wins or less. Believe it or not, Cleveland Browns, the 11 seed, 3-10, have been eliminated. So the Bengals, Dolphins, Colts looking to get in, and the team that could take a fall, not out of the postseason, but a fall in seed here, is the Pittsburgh Steelers, undoubtedly. Not that I don't believe in Pittsburgh and what they've proven week in and week out this year, but Pittsburgh right now is the class of their division, 2 games better than the Ravens. But they will see the Ravens again in just 2 weeks. They're going to be in Baltimore, but before then, they meet the Eagles on the road, at Baltimore, home to Kansas City, not the last week of the season, so likely still something to play for there. And then the finale, home to Cincinnati, an offense that is frankly really darn scary. Joe Burrow authoring a tremendous season in a lost season for Cincinnati. So the Steelers, a tough schedule the rest of the way. And if they lose that game to Baltimore, here's what the Ravens have to do to equalize the record and perhaps even go above what the Steelers are doing this year. They're at the New York Giants. Take care of business, you get a win. Home to the Steelers, you win that game, all of a sudden you're in really good spirits about the playoff conversation and possibly winning the division. Final 2 games at Houston. They've proven to be a little bit of a house of cards against good teams this year. And home to the Cleveland Browns, likely a win for the Baltimore Ravens. So Baltimore, despite the fact that they have not played their best lately, they're 8-5, 5-4 within the conference, 2-2 within the division. I like Baltimore to perhaps take Pittsburgh's spot in that top 4 as the division winner. And if they slide in, likely to be the 2 or the 3 seed over Houston. Denver does concern me that they could fall out of the playoff picture. Not overly concerned about too much of a shakeup in the AFC. The NFC, with Philadelphia's manufactured drama, you don't know what you're going to get, like a box of chocolates, according to our dude, Forrest Gump. Detroit Lions are the top seed, 12-1. Philly second, 11-2. Seattle and Tampa, that's the way they do it in the NFL. They're the 3 and 4 seeds. Minnesota, who has 4 more wins than Tampa, 3 more wins than Seattle, is the 5. Green Bay Packers are the 6, and the Commanders hanging on for now to that 7 spot. The Packers own the tiebreaker against the team that is the first team on the outside looking in, the LA Rams. Packers also own a tiebreaker over the Cardinals and the Niners via head-to-head matchup. So it's going to be tough for those 3 teams to get by Green Bay. Atlanta 3 games back, and the other teams still relatively in the mix, the Saints and the Cowboys. Everyone else just about eliminated. The Giants are technically the only team eliminated from the postseason in the NFC. That includes the Carolina Panthers, who at 3-10 still have some sort of mathematical path to the postseason. I don't anticipate a major shakeup here in the NFC. Detroit, to me, the class of the conference. Philly could probably lose a few games. It's going to take a long while, big tumble, for them to fall out of that 2 spot, to the tune of a couple games, 3 out of their last 4, something of that nature. Seattle, to me, tentative, hanging on to that division. I like the Bucs more than I like Seattle to hang on to that top spot. So Tampa could ascend to that 3 spot depending upon how things shake out. And then the wild cards, Minnesota and Green Bay, feel pretty firm. Washington, though, 8-5, started out so darn well. They've slumped a little bit. Not the greatest play of late. Maybe the Rams get on the right track and win the division or insert themselves into the wild card race. They are just 1 game back of Washington. Falcons are 2 games back. So again, we're pretty solid based on our overall 7 teams in both conferences as it sits here today in the National Football League. And let's talk Sam Darnold. We talked about him early this week. Should the Vikings bring him back on a franchise tag, on a 1-year deal, on a 2-year deal, team friendly? What would you like to see for the Vikings quarterback moving forward? What's the best for both parties? Sam Darnold was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. That's no surprise. Career high 5 touchdown passes in the win against Kirk Cousins. But where will Darnold be in 2025? Pro Football Talk at NBC Sports has a very interesting article up. Here's the list of landing spots. The New York Jets are on the list. I don't think that's a possibility. You don't want to admit you're that wrong if you're the New York Jets, but maybe stranger things have happened. The Steelers are on the list. They've got 2 quarterbacks on the roster that are starting caliber. I think that we know Russell Wilson is a better quarterback right now than Justin Fields. Both of those guys on short-term deals. Maybe Sam Darnold could be a fit for the future quarterback of the Steelers. The Titans, maybe. The Raiders, maybe. The Giants, the Saints, the Seahawks, and the Rams. But my best fit here, based on offensive familiarity, plug-and-play success, and just moving forward, the best thing for Darnold and the best thing for the team he's going to go to, without a doubt, one place in particular, and it's the LA Rams. And the reason I said Vikings fans might not love that is because that is an in-conference opponent that could be just a quarterback away from getting back to the postseason. They're pretty good right now with Matthew Stafford, and you're saying, Bert, Matthew Stafford is pretty good. What are you talking about? Why would they get rid of him? I think it's more of a necessity thing for Matthew Stafford. Lately, he's been pretty darn good. In fact, Matthew Stafford hasn't thrown a single interception since November the 11th. He's on a tear. He has a total of 10 touchdown passes against 0 interceptions, and the Rams in that stretch are 3-1. Stafford's playing good ball. He is. But if you look at a contract in the league, something that I always do, regardless of years or money, guaranteed at signing, average annual value, whatever. You look at the structure of a contract. I'm on Spotrac.com, one of my favorite websites for breaking down this thing. You look at potential outs throughout the length of the contract, and there is a big one here for the Rams to potentially clear themselves out from underneath Matthew Stafford and hit the reset button with a younger quarterback that might be able to offer similar results. Who could that be? Maybe it's Sam Darnold. This offseason, the Rams could get out from out underneath this massive contract for Stafford for a $49 million dead cap hit. Yes, that's a lot of money, but it pales in comparison to other situations around the league. Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, and others. Russell Wilson out in Denver. Matthew Stafford is great, but he is 36 going on 37. He's battled a slew of injuries, and maybe it's time to just lightly tap the reset button in L.A. where they've got the built-in receivers. They've got a couple tight end options. They got a good back behind them. The offensive line is functional. Defense has a little ways to go, but they got some young star power. Maybe the familiarity of the offensive system. Kevin O'Connell coached in L.A., Super Bowl season. Maybe that's a perfect fit for Sam Darnold with the LA Rams, but will the Vikings let it happen? Maybe it's a tag and trade. Maybe it's something else. Minnesota, in my opinion, you want to win next year. You want to go to the playoffs and repeat this season that we've seen to the tune of maybe a 10-win season next year, 11, 12, who knows? Maybe you keep Sam Darnold around next year and let J.J. McCarthy learn even more on the fly on the bench for now. Different thoughts, different opinions out there, I'm sure. But if I'm the Vikings, I at least entertain that thought moving into next season. That's the latest from the NFL. Quick update on some awards here. MVP frontrunner Josh Allen, minus 400, solidifying the grip. Saquon Barkley, though, is second at plus 450. You look at Offensive Rookie of the Year. That award still firmly in control by Jaden Daniels, minus 275. Bo Nix, plus 200, the runner-up. And Jared Verse is the odds-on favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year, minus 110, but this one really close. Quinyon Mitchell in Philadelphia, plus 115. Cooper DeJean, also in Philadelphia, Sioux Falls native, plus 1,400. Chop Robinson, Braden Fisk also on the list. And elsewhere, Coach of the Year, Dan Campbell 1, Kevin O'Connell 2, followed by Mike Tomlin, Sean Payton, and Jim Harbaugh. We take the break, back with the good, the bad, the ugly next on Overtime.
Overtime is in the day. Unwrap your sandwich and get caught up with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
It's time now for a super speedy edition of The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. We've got an appointment to keep with South Dakota State head football coach Jimmy Rogers, always brought to you now by the Game Day Men's Health. Schedule your consultation today. Get back to feeling better with Game Day Men's Health, GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Good news across the sports world. Chip Lindsey is the new offensive coordinator at Michigan. Lindsey, 15-19 as the head coach of Troy University from 2019 to 2021, has spent the past 2 seasons seasons as offensive coordinator at North Carolina. On to other good news. Penn State University Police will not be charging retired Eagles center Jason Kelsey after investigating an altercation with a fan over a cell phone before the November 2nd game against the Nittany Lions in Ohio State. University Police and Public Safety Public Information Officer Jacqueline Sheeter confirmed in an email to the Associated Press on Tuesday night that the case has been closed. On to bad news now. Toronto Raptors forward Scotty Barnes is expected to miss several weeks with a right ankle injury. That news confirmed to Shams Charania as of today. Barnes was injured in the third quarter of Monday's loss to the New York Knicks. And lastly, ugly scenario, not the first time we've heard this in recent memory. Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow's home was broken into during the Monday Night Football game against the Cowboys in the latest home burglary of a pro athlete in the United States. Authorities said that on Tuesday. No one injured in the break-in, but the home was ransacked. According to a report provided by the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, deputies were not immediately able to determine what items were stolen. Person who was employed by Burrow at the Anderson Township home on Monday night to find a shattered bedroom window and the home in disarray. The person called their mother. Then 911 was contacted. According to the report, disturbing situation. Pro athletes and homes getting burglarized when they are away. We take the break. Coming back, SDSU Jackrabbit head football coach Jimmy Rogers joining us next to finish up this Wednesday edition of Overtime right here on ESPN Sioux Falls.
The best sporting matchups and coverage. We are ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you, set to round out this Wednesday edition of Overtime. A reminder, tomorrow, Minnesota Vikings Thursday. Dustin Baker joins us from 11 to noon, breaking down all of the Minnesota Vikings topics, and there are a lot to get to as the Vikings moved to 11-2 just last week with another win against the Atlanta Falcons. Speaking of winning, South Dakota State Jackrabbit football got a big win over visiting Montana this past weekend, 35-18. They're on to the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs now, playing host to Incarnate Word coming up on Saturday. Kickoff 11 o'clock from inside Dana J. Dykehouse Stadium. You can secure your tickets right now. GoJacks.com. Here to talk to us week in and week out is second-year head coach Jimmy Rogers up there in Brookings. Coach, welcome back into the show. How you doing this week?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Coach, I'm excited to talk to you as always. It's great when you're winning playoff football games, and you guys put together quite the effort against Montana, 35-3 in the fourth quarter, 35-18 the final score against the Grizzlies. Talk about the complete team effort this past weekend that led to your team picking up another playoff win.
Yeah, I thought for the most part we played pretty clean all day, with the exception of a couple drives. Got a 3-and-out early. And then offensively, we turned the ball over at the 50. We held them to a field goal defensively, able to score two quick scores after that to go up 14-3. And defense got another 3-and-out right before half, and we were able to go in a 2-minute drive to score to go up 21-3. Wish we could have came out of half because we had the ball and being able to execute it well enough to go up to 28-3 at that time. But we didn't hang our head. We didn't execute, but we didn't hang our head. We absorbed 12 minutes of clock in the third quarter to really, eliminate the opportunity for them to get back into the game, and then we scored early in the fourth quarter to go up 28-3. So their response, well, they didn't really have one. We had Adam Bach intercept that ball to run back for a touchdown to put it up 35-3 really quickly in the fourth. So there's a lot of positives. We got to finish better in the fourth quarter. We kind of let them get some drives going and make some key plays, but overall it was a good day. Obviously, offense, defense, and I was credit Hunter Dustman with the special teams kicking away and being pointed about not allowing, their return man, Junior Bergen, impact the game like he's impacted so many games so far. So there's a lot of things that were positives to learn from. There's also plenty of negative things that we need to make sure that we assure that don't happen again for the future games to come.
South Dakota State Jackrabbit football, the focus right now as we finish up this Wednesday edition of Overtime, talking with head coach Jimmy Rogers. 35-18 the win over Montana. Mark Gronowski pretty steady and efficient, pretty clean in the pocket as well. Sacked only one time. He was 12 of 16 for $151, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. We don't talk about Mark a ton with you, Coach, because we know who he is. We know what he's about and the performances that he continues to string together. But just how valuable was his performance to your team in the win on Saturday?
Yeah, he's really valuable. I mean, anytime that you have a returning quarterback, let alone the Walter Payton Award-winning quarterback return to your team and an impactful player for us, he's one game away from tying the all-time win record as a quarterback in FCS history. So can't say enough about him as who he is, but more so how he works and just that teammate he really has been throughout the course of his time here.
Coach, what do you make of the overall connection and the chemistry between Mark and Griffin Wilde? They hooked up 2 times on Saturday for touchdowns, and Griffin has kind of become that go-to guy with the absence, of course, of the recent graduates, the Yankee brothers, as well as Zach Hines at tight end. I think Griffin's pretty settled in to that top spot, and Mark and Griffin, pretty good chemistry at this stage.
Yeah, I think it just takes time to work with different pieces, and I think it's shown up over time. What hard work does for you, those guys work extra every day after practice to make sure that they can go out and produce at that type of level. So it's not shocking to me. I've witnessed it. I've witnessed Griff be a great player. I've witnessed Lawson Obrowski be a phenomenal player, and really excited about, our progress that we've made thus far.
Coach, you were a linebacker by trade during your playing career, so I got to ask you about the pick 6 for Adam Bach. Nearly lost his footing, but an absurdly athletic play that he gets into the end zone really completely puts that exclamation point on the game for you. Again, you said you wanted to finish better in the end, but 35-3 and getting that big exclamation point pick 6 from Adam Bach had to feel pretty special.
Yeah, I was happy for Adam. He's had a couple of those in his career. He had one versus Northern Iowa in which couldn't catch his balance and tripped. So for him to stay on his feet and kind of put the game away there, especially for a guy that's given so much to the program and that has gone through so much through injury, I think it's fun for me to be able to see.
Adam Bach, pick 6 this past weekend. 35-18 the final against Montana. Now the sights set on the rematch. Second time this season that you'll see Incarnate Word. They come in Saturday at 11 o'clock. We've already seen them once, and I'll ask you momentarily about what you realistically can take away from that game in preparation for this weekend. But what stands out to you right now about the Incarnate Word football program?
Yeah, they're up-tempo. They're really good on offense. And defensively, they've improved a lot and have really been sound the whole season. They take probably extra drives just because of how fast that they go on offense and execute really well. Obviously, the quarterback has played as a true freshman at Texas A&M, and he was as good as advertised when we saw him. And they got 2 wide receivers that are closing in on 2,000 yards receiving. One in Roy Alexander and then one in Jalen Wellthorpe, who I think is probably the best wide receiver in FCS football. So we got to do a good job of not giving up explosives by also tackling well and making them earn every bit of it and eliminating explosive plays, but also creating our own. And it'll take full 60 minutes, and we're hoping that the crowd can get behind us for this one because we got to make it as hard as possible for what will be a dynamic offense that we're facing on Saturday.
We're talking South Dakota State Jackrabbit football with head coach Jimmy Rogers. Incarnate Word, the opponent, 11 o'clock a.m. start time on Saturday. Tailgating lots, I would imagine, open pretty darn early Saturday morning. The game will be broadcast on ESPN if you can't make it up to Brookings, but if you can, be there, be loud for the Jackrabbits. Previous matchup was the home opener between you two back on Saturday, September the 7th. Every game is different. Every team is different. And, of course, injuries, personnel changes, growth of players. A lot changes between September and as we're into mid-December, Coach. How much can you realistically glean from that first matchup of the season in preparation to see them again?
Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, that game was much closer than what people remember. It was tied 17-17 in the third quarter. It wasn't like it was just a blowout. We won by 21 points, but we had to drain the clock. In the fourth quarter, we absorbed the clock with 12 minutes on offense, and that's not easy to do. So there's a lot of things that we need to be prepared for, and there's a ton of things that we need to get better at that we didn't do in the first game. And every game and every week is different, and you got to come out ready to play your best ball. And there's a certain level of focus that goes into this, that you have to block out all the outside noise and distraction of what had happened in the past, or anything that you may hear from the outside world that really doesn't matter in the actual game. And that gets harder and harder the more you have success. And during the week, we bring everybody to reality that anybody can be beaten, and we got to get ready to play our best football and be locked into just focusing on doing your job at a high level.
Final 8 teams are set in the FCS college football playoffs. Again, South Dakota State playing host to Incarnate Word Saturday at 11 o'clock. Ticketing and more information, GoJacks.com. If you can't make it, listen to the game on the Jackrabbit Sports Network from Learfield. Watch the game on ESPN on your TV. When it comes down to the nuts and bolts of winning playoff football at any level, you got to be able to run the ball, and ideally you want to be able to have success running and control the clock. You did that this past weekend, Coach. 222 yards on the ground. Your team held the football for nearly 34 minutes of the game clock in that game. I would assume those things are important in this contest against Incarnate Word. What's another key or two for your team, offense, defense, or special teams, for a win on Saturday?
Yeah, we got to do a good job of tackling in space and being able to win a one-on-one matchup here or there. We also got to create our own turnovers and make sure that we have great ball security, and that goes along with running the ball and having consistency to, win in the elements regardless of the temperature, control what you can control. There's so many things that go into winning a game, but I think it's going to start out front. And they got a great D-line, 2 all-conference DNs, a defense that I believe is much improved from maybe the first game. The reality is we only saw them play versus Northern Colorado as a unit, and now seeing them 10 games later, quite a bit different team with a lot of tape on them, and they've improved drastically. We can't take them for granted. So we're ready to play our best ball this Saturday at 11 a.m., a little earlier time, but hoping for a full stadium, and we'll see how it shakes.
Overall, over 10,000 folks in attendance, 10,376 folks in attendance. The official attendance marker at GoJacks.com for the win over Montana. Lastly, Coach, obviously you know how important the crowd is early game. Give me your pitch to the fans out there to make the trip up to Brookings, down to Brookings, east to west to Brookings to see this game and collision coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, we're excited. $10 ticket. Invite a friend, bring a buddy, bring some coffee, whatever you got to do. But students get in free, and should be a great atmosphere.
Looking forward to the game immensely. 11 o'clock start time Saturday on ESPN. Get there in person. Secure your tickets today. GoJacks.com. That's second-year head coach Jimmy Rogers up there in Brookings. Coach, always appreciate the time. We'll talk to you again next week on the show. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
South Dakota State head football coach Jimmy Rogers on a Wednesday throughout every single football season. Can't thank the coaches of our area college programs enough. We check in with SDSU every Wednesday. We check in with USD and head coach Bob Nielsen every Monday during the season. Augustana, USF, and occasionally other programs from around South Dakota and our region. I can't express enough how much it means to be able to get that inside perspective with each of our college football programs in our neck of the woods. And it also helps. They're pretty darn good year in and year out. South Dakota State this year, a record of 11-2. Nice, big, long winning streak. 6 straight games for SDSU since that lone loss at the FCS level of the season back on Saturday, October the 19th. That was a 13-9 final up inside the Fargo Dome. Maybe we'll get a rematch in that one between North Dakota State and South Dakota State. But again, one game at a time. And a look at that bracket right now. Here are your final 8 teams and the respective matchups. Friday night, Montana State plays host to Idaho. That is the 8 seed and the 1 seed. Montana State, the 1 seed. That game at home, and it is a 8 o'clock Central start time on Friday night. Then on to Saturday. First game of the day will be South Dakota State home to Incarnate Word, 11 o'clock. UC Davis comes in to the Dakota Dome down in Vermilion. That's a 2 o'clock go time. That's the 5-4 seed matchup and the 2-7 seed matchup. North Dakota State, the 2, playing host to the 7th seeded Mercer Bears. A lot to look forward to in the quarterfinal round of the FCS playoffs. A little bit of a deeper dive into Incarnate Word. They've got 2 losses this year, one of which came to South Dakota State, and then the very next week they were on the road again in Carbondale against Southern Illinois, who at the time, the Salukis were rated number 8 in the country, lost that game by a touchdown. And Coach Rogers just chronicled how close the game was between Incarnate Word and South Dakota State into the third quarter, latter stages of the contest as well. 45-24 was the final in the game, but back-to-back losses early this season for Incarnate Word. They started it out 1-2. Since that time, they rattled off 10 straight wins, including wins over Northern Arizona, Nichols State, McNeese State, Houston Christian, Stephen F. Austin, East Texas A&M, and then in the first round last week, ugly game, but a football game, football score, 13-6 the final against Villanova. A little bit more about that game. Halftime, 3-3. End of the third quarter, Nova led it 6-3, but who was going to finish the game? And the answer was Incarnate Word. Big touchdown pass with 14 minutes to go in the game. Engineered another nice long drive, 10 plays, 62 yards to put the icing on the cake and go up 7 with just 4 minutes to go. And you look at the nuts and bolts of that game, the pressures, the turnovers. They took it away one time via interception in the contest, also sacked the quarterback of Nova 3 different times, and they stayed clean. No interceptions thrown, and they ran for 255 yards on the ground. So it's a versatile, multiple offense here for UIW. And Zach Calzada, the aforementioned Texas A&M transfer, pretty darn good, capable quarterback at this level of college football. It is a big game. Make no mistake about it. Saturday morning, 11 o'clock a.m. start time for tailgating information, ticketing information, everything you need to know, and a full preview of the matchup. GoJax.com. Special thanks as always to head coach Jimmy Rogers for joining us. We will say so long with that. A reminder, tomorrow on the show, final show of the week, we got Dustin Baker in town in studio from 11 to noon. Can't wait for that. All things Minnesota Vikings. Has his tune changed on the future at the quarterback position in the Twin Cities? Should Sam Darnold be offered a deal of some sort after the season? We'll take the pulse of Dustin Baker on that topic and so much more when Overtime returns to the air tomorrow at 11 to 1 on the Thursday edition of Overtime right here on ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO.